Dr. Bimal Jalan. Here's an appreciative welcome to an economist of global repute, former MP and Governor of Reserve Bank of India, Dr. Bimal Jalan. Dr. Jalan held several prestigious positions in the Government of India. He was Chief Economic Finance Secretary, Chairman of the Economic Advisory Council, Member Secretary of the Planning Commission. He was the Chief Economic Advisor to the Union Government, Banking Secretary, and went to become Finance Secretary in the Ministry of Finance. He has served as the Executive Director, representing India on the boards of International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Dr. Jalan authored books like India's Economy Crisis, The Way Ahead, The Future of India, India's Politics, A View from the Backbench, The Future of India, Politics, Economics and Governance. His latest book, India's Economic Policy, Preparing for the 21st Century, examines some of the critical policy choices for India. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the economic wizard, Dr. Bimal Jalan, to share his wisdom with all of us today.
Well, I must confess that I feel a little embarrassed. I didn't expect that this kind of a welcome I would get from Indian Management Association. I know very little about management. And I'm also delighted to see the number of professionals, the students, experts who you have been able to assemble. It's really a very striking conclave, and I regard it as a great privilege to be here, to be able to speak to you and share some thoughts with you. This is, I understand, is the 20th year of conclaves being organized by IMA. And I would not have imagined that this would really be a part of reclaiming India's tryst with destiny, which is the theme of your conference, as I understand it. You've already had some extremely interesting and inspiring lectures, I understand, yesterday, and of course, Sri Sadhguru was here this morning. And the subject that I was thinking about to speak sounds so dull and so boring, economy, politics, and governance, that I don't know whether I should simply sit down or perhaps share some thoughts with you. In the management, the reason why I am speaking about this economy, politics, and governance is that I've been involved in different capacities in all these three areas, in the economy as well as in governance structure and politics. And what is striking today about our struggle to claim the tryst with destiny is that if you look around, India's achievement today falls much short of its potential. And the real issue that we have to grapple with is why. If you think about the economy, India, in terms of the fundamentals of our economy, India is among not only the fastest emerging market economies over a long period, but in terms of its fundamentals, we have no shortage of savings. We are not dependent on trade, international trade that is. The proportion of trade is we can handle it even with a global crisis. We are the pioneer in technology, technological movement, IT. We have huge skilled resources. If you look around, and it's very inspiring to see so many Indians dominating the best international corporations in several segments of our world economy. So we have all the fundamentals. Then we are the biggest democracy in human history. 2015, the largest free and fair elections were given by India. 600 million people. So what I'm trying to say, so in terms of politics also, we have a tremendous opportunity, we have a tremendous strength, and as the largest democracy, we can take a lot of pride, which has gone down ups and downs and so on. But people of India have favor to remain democratic, to preserve its freedom. You can do what you like. I can do what I like. Everybody can do what they like. And yet, there are issues emerging in the sphere of politics also that we have to handle, and I'll come to them in a brief while. And then, of course, governance. Governance is related to politics in the sense that politicians decide the governance system, the administrative system. But there also we are facing several problems. So today, in this particular session, what I thought I should bring these three together and relate it to the management. I mean, this is the India Managerial Association in the sense that it is really the management part of our economics, the management part of our politics, and the management part of our governance, which lacks the kind of thread which needs the corporate sector in achieving the best that it can. Now, if you look at India's economy, I just talked about fundamentals being so strong. But then why is it that one of the fastest growing countries, one of the stars of emerging market economies, has the largest number of persons below poverty line? The largest number of people below the poverty line. Why is it that in the Human Development Index, which constitute of a country's ranking in terms of human development, such as life expectancy, literacy, standard of living, and health, and regarded as a most comprehensive measure of a country's progress, then growth in per capita income per se. What is India's rank? 135 among 187 countries. So all these are related issues: economy, politics, and governance. So I'm speaking about them. And I believe that a challenge before our country in reclaiming its tryst with destiny is really that we as people, you as the corporate leaders and members of the IMA, have to launch a better program for better governance and political reforms. And I want to talk about political reforms per se, because all of us know about these, and all of us feel frustrated by the working of our politics and bureaucracy. And of course, economy, all of you study, and management is your subject. But what is it that we can do to make our leaders fully accountable? Not only at the time of elections, but in terms of performance, and in terms of what is it that we can do to raise India's rank in the STI index to its vast potential, in terms of skills, in terms of people, in terms of status of our democratic system, and so on and so forth, by at least 50% in the next 5 years or so. Now, can you imagine, I mean, I don't want to deal too much with economics, I'll say a few things about economy also. I talked about fundamentals, and I say that in terms of economy also we have certain problems. But can you imagine that this democracy, our political system, that until the present government took power in May 2014, in the previous 25 years, we had 9 governments, 25 years. It was called compulsions of coalition politics, you may remember. Now, let us ask ourselves, why? We have free elections. So what is the system that we have created which has given this incentive for us to be run by coalitions not once, not twice, but 9 times. And the average life of these governments was short-term, 2 years, not 5 years. Was that the concept of our constitution? No. Then you may ask, how did it happen? Now, the most interesting thing is that this is our doing. And this happens, just as it happens in management, that you have the strength, you have the resources, but you take some measures which are extremely well intended, but then unless you are willing to change over a period of time, when technology changes, when the resources of the country changes, unless you are willing to change and reform, the system continues to fragment. Now, I talked about fragmentation of the political system. And why is it that we have this kind of a fragmentation of our politics? The real reason is that is the so-called anti-defection law. This is a very interesting point. I mean, I am taking the liberty of going on in this technical way about this particular issue of anti-defection law. What it says is that if you are a member of a party, you cannot defect from that party without having to seek re-election. Now, this was a very well-intended thing in 1985 or something, when there was problems in Bihar, people were bargaining, bribes and so on. Well-intended. Now see what has happened. As the result, what you say, the perverse incentive, built-in perverse incentive of doing something that you do. What happened? That if you are a leader with 3 constituencies, if you are a leader of Indore, or for that matter, 3 districts or 3 constituencies in Bihar, you will have your own party. So what we have done is, over a period of time, you have fragmented India's politics in terms of the party system, which is the pillar of our parliamentary system of democracy. This year, we have, of course, the great fortune of having, after 25 years, a government in majority, and we are celebrating it. But I hope that this 5-year period would be taken advantage of to abolish this anti-defection law, or apply this anti-defection law also to parties. Just think about this. The fragmentation, the short-termism, how do you expect the politics to run? Then you must all know in the management schools that politics is a career of choice. Politics. Now I remember 2 years ago, there was a newspaper item with a political, at the time of elections, a politician leaving the jail to fight elections. And the media was asking, why are you fighting election? He said, I would rather be in politics than in jail. So according to the statistical survey of Lok Sabha, in recent elections, that nearly 20% of the candidates surveyed, cutting across party line, have criminal antecedents. Our country, our democracy, our free and fair political system. 20% of the members of Lok Sabha have criminal antecedents. They allocate public resources. All of us know about it, all of us complain about it, but why? See, this man coming out of jail to say, I would rather be in politics than in jail, because if you are an elected member of parliament, then you can stay as elected member or a minister until kingdom come. Now supposing we the people decided that we will prove your innocence within 6 months after elections, not your guilt, because you are presumed to be innocent until proven guilty. So I want to prove your innocence within 6 months. Now the same chap would have remained in jail rather than coming out, because if he comes out, he can't go on bail indefinitely. I don't want to name politicians, but today there are politicians all over India, political leaders rather, not politicians, who have got out on bail and not in jail because their cases are still being heard after 15 years or 10 years. So we have created a perverse incentive in our politics, in the working of our politics. Then, of course, I talked about governance. If you relate the system of governance, who governs? Political leadership is supposed to make policy. Government was run by bureaucracy, so-called bureaucracy, civil servants. Now, under the Indian system of executive responsibility, there's supposed to be a clear division of roles between permanent civil service and political leadership. Things where, I didn't belong to any civil service per se, but as you were kind enough to point out, I held various positions in different ministries from outside. But that was a long time ago. Now, today, what is happening? If you look at bureaucratic transfers, if you look at bureaucratic postings, in the earlier days, it was decided in terms of some procedure. Heads of public sector enterprises were decided by public sector enterprises board and so on and so forth. And now what has happened? Today, you transfer, you change. Some time ago, all of you would probably remember, there were 2 6-month governments in UP, one of our largest states. Two governments which didn't have majority, so they shared. 6 months, I will rule, 6 months, you will rule. First government, when they came, they transferred senior officers at an average rate of 7 per day. The next 6 months, the power which came, she said, oh, 7 per day. I am going to transfer 16 per day. Now what do you expect? So I have talked about politics, some of the problems, issues that we are facing. I have told you about bureaucracy. How do you have this system run? So now administration has naturally become very weak also. We talk about corruption. The most interesting is that 2 points. I'm now going to use some management language, that all of you are familiar with money multiplier. That is a certain amount of money which is created by the Reserve Bank, or what is money. All of you know that. There is a multiplier because it circulates. So in our country, we have a corruption multiplier. You think about your own experiences, that there are layers, both vertical and horizontal. And it's not one permit that you need, and one person who is to issue the permit who would be corrupt, but the whole around. So there is a corruption, what I call corruption multiplier. And I mentioned to you about economy. Just imagine what the effect of that is on the economy. The reason why I'm emphasizing this, the economy, that if I want to transfer money to the poor below poverty line, as under the public distribution system for rations, for every rupee that the poor gets, you spend 3 rupees 65 paise in administering, and 48% of it is diverted. So what I'm trying to get to, I don't want to take too much of your time, that we have to work hard, and I hope this particular government, which after 25 years since 89, enjoys a majority of members in parliament, will redefine the role of government in the economy. You see, it used to be the industry, I mean, I think all of you know the licensing Raj, and you must have all read about the history and so on and so forth. That was industrialization, there was a case for it and so on. But what we need is, that has continued, the license. It's not called license Raj, you can set up any industry you want. But then after having set it up, there is a license Raj all over the place. Land, water, power, something, there is all that stuff, So, what I'm saying is that if we could change the political role of the government and ensure a stable and competitive environment with a strong external, we have all the I just accounted to you, all the strength that we have in terms of fundamentals, high savings rate. Today, current account deficit is also low. We are not dependent on balance of payments. Our reserves are also high. If you can use these opportunities to reset the role of our government in power, to make policy, to provide benefits to the poorest people, poorest section of our society. But implementation, leave it to the bureaucracy. Now, I talked about the largest elections in human history. Who gives you that? Election Commission. What election commission is, who is in the election commission? All bureaucrats. But would it be able to give it to you if it was responsible to Home Ministry? Think about it. Now you may wonder that what is it all has to do with management colleges, management university and Indian Management Association. I think it is that if you want to reclaim India's tryst with destiny, we have to redefine what we expect of our government. We have to redefine what is the separation of powers between government and civil service. We have to redefine what is the role of government in providing permissions and licenses and make our business the ease of doing business. Now we have the opportunity, I believe. So the government, if we could redefine the role of the government, you make policy, political leadership. But execution, leave it to the agencies who would be accountable for their performance. And we have agencies like that. Election Commission, I mentioned, CVC, Central Vigilance Corporation, or whatever it is, CVC, CAG, etc., etc. And then now we also have an emergence. I mean, I'm talking about majority government. Then there is also an emergence of what you might say, the Right to Education, Right to Information Act has been passed. As citizens, we have the right. And I would suggest that IMA should set up a unit over a period of time to take it on, that all public interest issues which affect students, which affect corruption, which affect the liability of the government for performance are taken to court. On the PIL, in terms of PIL, because you have the right to information, you demand, and it's happening. So I'm hopeful that over a period of time, we will see some developments. It's happening now to a certain extent, but we have to reinforce it, and this is the main challenge, not only before our political leaders, not only before our civil service, but also in front of institutions like the IMA and the IIMs and the IITs, because you have that brain power, you have the ability to manage, and I think we can do it. So let me conclude. Two overarching points that I just wish to convey to you is that growth of GDP is certainly important, but we must do all that is needed to put India on a high growth trajectory, but it's not an end in itself. We must also ensure that benefits of the growth reach all the people. And second, that in order to achieve this objective, reforms are not economic reforms per se, that you need broad-based reforms, particularly urgent political reforms, to enforce collective accountability of governments in power, combined with administrative reforms to reduce corruption, simplify rules, and provide easy access to easy access to citizens to public services. I mean, I just said to you that we have all the potential. I mean, if you go back, many of us so-called oldies, if we go back to the 60s, to the 70s, to the 80s, the kind of issues that you faced trying to meet the cost of oil by having to, pledge your gold to Bank of England, to do things which were like that you didn't have the freedom, didn't have the elbow room. Today, the young generation all around here has the opportunity and has the access to resources to do what they want for the benefit of our country. And I'm absolutely sure that we can reclaim India's tryst with destiny. Thank you.